this whole stack of note cards. And now I don't know what I did with them.
Makes sense.
Hello, my name is Robin Broman. I am the development manager for the Roosevelt Square redevelopment area. And I'd like to thank you all for participating today in the first virtual resident meeting for redevelopment efforts at Roosevelt Square. Before we get started, I would just like to introduce to my right, Michael Kaplan, the project manager with Related Midwest. He'll be giving a presentation for you today. Related Midwest is the CHA development partner for the site, and we're very excited that you could all participate. In the chat, there will be time for you to put your comments in or your questions, and we will answer all those questions once the presentation is done. So with that, Michael, take it away.
Thanks, Robin. And first wanted to say thank you all for joining. We're super excited to be here to discuss the upcoming phase of development. We've got new units, we have rehab of existing units, there will be jobs, filling in gaps along Taylor and Roosevelt, and bringing retail. So I think all really great things for the neighborhood. And before we get started, I'm going to run through some of the details of the project. I'll try to run through it briefly so that we have plenty of time for questions and answers. If we don't have time for all of the questions, you can email them to us at community@relatedmidwest.com. So this phase of development is a continuation of the third phase at Roosevelt Square, which started with the library. Some of you may be residents of the building, but as a refresher, this development includes 73 units, just over half of which are dedicated to public housing residents. About 40% are affordable at modest income levels, and then the balance are unrestricted market rate units. Since opening in 2019, the building has been virtually 100% leased, with only a handful of move-ins and move-outs since then. So to build off the momentum of this phase, we've been working in partnership with CHA and the city to figure out a way to continue to bring more units, more residences, and more development to Roosevelt Square. So as we set out to work on this phase, we sat down with CHA and worked on some of our objectives, what we're trying to accomplish. And one of the most challenging obstacles to really getting shovels in the ground and units built is pulling together all of the funding. So projects like Roosevelt Square rely on both public and private funding, both of which are limited. Because the first phase of development at Roosevelt Square has now been in service for 15 years, we were able to attract private investment to this project. And this new private investment will allow us to modernize units, being new flooring, new cabinets, counters, appliances if they haven't been recently replaced, and most importantly, all of the building systems so that these buildings can continue to be great places for residents for another 15, 20 years off into the future. Additionally, rather than any additional proceeds as part of this phase being allocated to either CHA or owner, we've agreed to reinvest in new buildings. So with the assistance from the CHA and further partnership with assistance from the city and further partnership from CHA, we're able to deliver 80 new CHA units and 47 new affordable units. Additionally, a primary goal of this project is to get back in balance by delivering a sizable market rate component. So as many of you know, the second phase of development at Roosevelt Square was cut short by the financial crisis, and we are a little bit out of balance. So in addition to the 80 CHA units and 47 affordable units, we'll also be delivering a significant market rate component here. And then additionally, as I mentioned earlier, being able to infill on Taylor Street and Roosevelt Road, we think will really deliver a strong impact from a community character standpoint. and I think we're really excited about what's to come. So to give you a sense of where these buildings are, here's a map. What you see in green are all of the Phase 1 buildings that will be rehabbed. And then in red, and marked by T1, R2, and R3, will be 3 new mid-rise buildings, each one with 65 to 70 units. For frame of reference, T1 is on Taylor Street at Taylor and Racine. You can see just north of Taylor, on the upper left of the screen in the red dotted line, that's the library building. And then the 2 buildings just south of Roosevelt Road are at the corners of Troop and Loomis. The shaded gray box at Roosevelt and Racine, that's the CVS as a frame of reference. And then in the bottom left corner is where the Jane Addams Resource Center is. So to start with the Roosevelt Road buildings, these are 2 buildings. We're considering them sort of sister buildings or twin buildings. They won't be identical, but they will share some of the same ideas of architecture and design, and will have essentially identical floor plans, unit mix, and income mix. Each building will be 70 units, and of those 70 units, it's just over 40% will be reserved for public housing residents, 30% will be affordable, and about 30%, just under, will be unrestricted market rate. To give you an idea of what the ground floor plan will look like, there'll be an entrance on the west side of the buildings, and right as you enter, a lobby, fitness area, and then toward the back of the building, tenant storage, bike storage, and elevators. On the far east side of the building will be space reserved for Roosevelt Square maintenance. Our intention is to create a dedicated space for the entire maintenance team, and also have storage and other aspects. And then in between will be parking. The buildings will include a mix of surface and indoor parking, which will be available to any of the residents at the building. We've been working with an architecture firm named Design Bridge. They're a local Chicago firm, MBE certified, and they've really done an excellent job, in our opinion, of kind of rethinking these sites in a way complementing the buildings that are there, but also providing a new modern look. So this is an example of the building that would be at Loomis and Roosevelt. And then the building just east of this, I think, would have similar expression, similar materials, but sort of complementary, maybe a different pattern. The units, if any of you have seen those at the library, the units here, and similarly the rehabbed units, will all have a similar style finish, quality of finish, hardwood floors, and again, updated kitchens and bathrooms. These photos are from the Taylor Street property, and again are sort of a guiding principle in terms of what the architect will be going for in the new buildings. At Taylor and Racine, there'll be one building, 67 units, and this building will be currently planned to be 25% reserved for CHA residents, and then the balance will be market rate. The intention here is to balance out the library building, which was 90% affordable. So together, these make up a similar mix to the 2 Roosevelt buildings. Additionally, we'll have 10,000 approximately square feet of retail on the ground floor. And this building's being designed by a partnership of Moody Nolan and Landon Bone Baker. To give you a sense, the ground floor, again, it'll be surface parking behind. This one will not have indoor parking because of the retail. And then the units above will be six floors or 5 floors above the retail. Here's a current architect rendering. Again, being on Taylor Street, which is more of a pedestrian street, the architects are looking to sort of have alternating building heights and mass and sort of break it up as pedestrians that walk by, so it's kind of complements the scale of the existing buildings there. The last piece of the project, which I haven't covered yet, is something that's still in the works, but we wanted to give you a preview of it. Our goal is to bring 15 units to the north side of the National Public Housing Museum. So we've been working closely with their staff and their board to work out an arrangement where space that was otherwise set for a future use to be determined could house residents. The thinking is the 15 units would be split a third each between CHA, affordable, and market. And part of the benefit to bringing this and folding this into our project, in our mind, is that it also brings this museum closer to opening. I think they're excited. They've done a lot of fundraising. And with this addition to the back, they feel that they'll be ready to start construction on the museum component. We think it'll be a really great, directly across from the library, cultural combination of uses. So we're excited about the possibility of this being part of the phase as well. And to summarize, the overall unit mix of all of the buildings in this phase works out similarly to the Roosevelt buildings, but again, spread across all of them is about 40% CHA, public housing residents, 25% affordable at a couple of different income levels, and then the balance unrestricted market rate. In total, including the library, it's 295 units, or 222 without the library, 222 still to be built. So with that, unless there's anything else Robin wants to add, we can open it up for questions.
Thank you, Michael. So, keeping an eye on the live stream currently, the first question we received is there any vacancy at Taylor Street Apartments?
I believe it's currently 100% occupied. Occasionally, one unit does become available, so I can confirm that.
Do you have a waiting list that people can get on 4 units?
And there is a waiting list. Again, if you want to email community@relatedmidwest.com, we can make sure the inquiry gets to the right place.
Okay. So far, that's the only question we've got, but we'll give it a little bit of time so people can respond. Yeah, do you want to put an image back up, maybe of one of the renderings, and we can see if we've got individuals that'll post some questions. We've got a question from Mary Baggett. She's asking about contracts and construction. So basically MBE, WBE opportunities, section 3. Would one of you guys like to speak to that?
Yep. You want to take it? Go ahead. No, you got it.
So I appreciate the question. Related Midwest has a equity, diversity, and inclusion directive, which is sort of an internal program that we consider to be a standard across all of our properties, whether or not there are requirements. These, of course, have requirements as well, but it's sort of a company policy that to meet and exceed any of these goals and really bring it to all of the projects. I think for this building, we'll follow a similar format as the Taylor Street Library building. So I think in probably late spring, we'll be coming out with an and working closely with both aldermen on a plan of action that will set forth, the different vendor fares and otherwise. But again, intend fully to prioritize inclusion on this project.
So we have another question that's come in. When can I apply for one of these apartments?
So I think what we'll do, and first off, important to note that to the extent there are still folks on the right to return list, that will be sort of first priority in access to these units. While we're under construction, and this is sort of similar to how it worked with the library, but we took we really started taking names. So if you come to us early, we'll start a running list, and then probably 3 or 4 months before completion, which is likely to be around the end of 2022, we'll start actually going through the leasing process.
Okay. So we have another question from Mary Baggett asking, can a current resident transfer into a new building? That's an occupancy question, so we will have to get back to Mary on that one. I don't have the answer, but we will circle back on that question. Here's another good question. What is the retail that you're considering for the Taylor and Racine building?
So we've had conversations with some retail brokers. Our intention, we really want to bring something that benefits the community. So we started conversations early. We have yet to land a tenant that would take all space. We're still open to doing so, and if anyone has any ideas, we're certainly open to taking them. And then if we continue to move forward and build this, and there until we find that tenant, the space will be available. It's being designed to be flexible so that if it's not one user, it can be divided and made as smaller spaces to accommodate more local businesses in the neighborhood.
Another question is, will there be fitness space in the new buildings as an amenity?
All 3 buildings will include fitness space.
Okay. Thank you. We're waiting for more questions. Don't be shy, guys. Come on. When will construction begin?
We're expecting construction to start by the end of the year, this year.
And will that have an 18-month construction schedule?
Yes. So we're expecting 16 to 18 months from the time we start. So we're looking at an early 2023 opening of the buildings.
What are the average size of the units that will be available?
So the units will be a mix of predominantly 1s and 2s. There will be some studios. There will be some 3-bedroom units. I think the typical size of a 1-bedroom unit is about 650 square feet or so, and the typical size of a 2-bedroom is around 900, though there will be some larger 2-bed, 2-bath units. And then the 3s, I think, are somewhere around 1,000 square feet.
So another question is the square footage for the retail space at Taylor and Racine is, did we cover that? Is it like 10,000 square feet?
So it's about 10,000 total, and that could be 10,000 in one space, or it could be split up to spaces, I think, as small as about 1,500, which would be similar to the retail space just north on Taylor Street.
Okay, that was the next part of the question, was if there was space for more than one retailer. There's another question regarding parking. So this is kind of a broader question. First of all, will there be parking for residents? And if there isn't parking for residents, will there be permitted parking?
So yes, there will be parking. We're planning for about, roughly one space for every 2 units. And what we did to determine the amount of parking is base the amount of usage on the existing buildings that we have. So look at the library, look at some of the 3 flat, 6 flat buildings, and provide a similar level so that we can be confident that there will be parking available for those that want it.
Oh, and I know Alderman Irvin is on the feed. Thank you for pointing that out. Maybe the Alderman would like to give us his thoughts on any kind of permitted parking or if there's going to be any parking changes. Okay. So Maya is asking that we clarify, so how many new units are going to be built? And then how many rehab units?
So there'll be, including the museum, 222 new units. And then the rehab is 184 existing units.
Another question is, when is construction completion expected? Again, it's a 16 to 18 month construction window. So if we start in December, 16 to 18 months out from there. So really it depends on when the transaction closes. So we don't know that date yet, but we will soon. I should have worn my glasses. This is really, really hard to read these comments. How many? Okay. Will there be 2, 3, and 4 bedrooms? I believe this is just 1 and 2s.
There will be 1, 2s, and 3s.
Oh, so there'll be 1, 2s, and 3 bedroom units.
I think that's a good question. I think it's something that we still need to consider. I think it's a great idea, but we just have to put some thought and talk with our management team as to the viability of it.
So we should probably repeat that question. The question was, will folks from the larger community, correct, be able to use the fitness facility in the new building? Or phase 1, excuse me.
Right, for phase 1. So I don't have an answer for that today. I think it's something that we still need to consider. It's something we still need to consider.
So Mary Baggett asked another question. How many public housing units total? That'll be 75.
75. And potentially 80 if the museum is part of it.
Right, okay. Are pets going to be allowed?
Another to be determined. I think it's likely. Certainly, they're allowed in the phase 1 buildings. And at any building, if there's a reasonable accommodation, pets are allowed.
The next question is, can we talk a little bit about the rehab process for phase 1 units?
Yeah, so that's another good question, and frankly deserves a meeting of its own. I think actually likely several. I will, but for now, what I can tell you is that the expected turnaround time on a rehab of those is about 5 days. To the extent that, and we don't expect any displacement, and I would also clarify that there won't be any change to the program there. So no change to rents, no change to eligibility. So that all remains the same. I think if it turns out that the rehab requires that residents are not in their units for 5 days, we will provide alternative housing, and that is something. But again, those details are all still to be rolled out closer to the start of that project. I think likely later this summer. So another question came in as to whether Alderman Sigcho Lopez is aware of the project. Yes, the alderman is aware. We have met with him a couple of times to talk about the 2 buildings on Roosevelt Road and the portion of the rehab that are in the 25th Ward. And he'll continue to be part of the process as there are additional community meetings. He'll be instrumental in moving those forward.
Another question, well, first, to piggyback on what Michael said about the rehab component, this is the first virtual resident meeting. We will have, obviously, another one. The community process, the engagement process is our residents, then it'll be the broader community. So we're really fleshing out what's going on and getting information out to our residents right now. And there's a whole component of rehab meetings that will take place. So we will be back. We'll be back again and again and again with a lot of information regarding the rehab portion. So this is just, just the beginning. So I want to reassure people of that. Also, another question, is there going to be on-site laundry? And the second question is, will you be accepting Section 8 families?
Yes to both. There will be laundry on site in each building, and Section 8 voucher holders are welcome at the site as well. So another question to go over, scope of work on the rehab.
Yes, please.
So these will include virtually all new flooring and new paint. The kitchens will be rehabbed with new cabinets and new countertops. Appliances, some of you have already had your appliances replaced. For those who haven't, there will be new appliances. Bathroom, vanities, and fixtures will all be replaced. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, some of the main building systems, so for instance, windows, roofs, furnaces, water heaters, to the extent that those also haven't been replaced, those will be as well. And again, to ensure longevity of these units, ensure that they continue to be, good housing units going forward.
So we've got a question about accessibility. Will there be accessible units? How many units will there be? And what type of accessibility features will there be in those units?
There will be accessible units. Each of these buildings will include at least 20% of their units as accessible. So for the Roosevelt buildings, that's 14 each.
Mhm.
And the Taylor building, and again, it depends on if the museum is incorporated, but will likely include at least that many as well. If the museum building is included, because of the way that building was constructed with stairs to enter, that will not have accessible units, but will provide the same total amount and add them to the building at Taylor and Racine.
Another question is regarding the lease. The tenant selection plan in the lease, and wondering if it's going to be the same as it is across the site. So I don't know that we can know that yet, do we?
The process is, and there's still steps to go on finalizing the tenant selection plan and those lease documents. The plan, though, is to keep them consistent across all phases at Roosevelt Square. If there are new policies or new considerations, the goal would also be to match the previous phases. But I don't expect any major changes to those plans.
Another question is, will seniors be given a priority for units?
That's not anticipated at this time. Something that can be considered, though.
Also, another question, will any of these three buildings have a community room similar to what we have at Taylor Street Library and Apartments?
Yes, all three will have community space. I think on the Taylor and Racine, it'll likely be on an upper floor. And then the two Roosevelt buildings will have space adjacent to the entry. It may not be, exactly the same as the library, but still, soft seating and comfortable place.
These are all really good questions. Okay. Will there be elevators? Yes, these are all three are elevator buildings.
All three are elevator buildings. So another question as to whether small businesses will be able to rent retail space. I would point out that for the most part, all of the retail we've developed at Roosevelt Square has been catered to small businesses. I think to the extent that these that this space does not get leased to a large single user, that would be the intention, that they would be smaller spaces with a rent that's fair to a small business. And again, if there are, I would encourage, if people have ideas, thoughts on small businesses, encourage you to reach out again to community@relatedmidwest.com, as we periodically have vacancies in our spaces across the street.
Okay, still waiting for some more questions. So one thing that has come up is we know that there are folks that are either have limited access or no access to the internet, or are not all that internet savvy, me being included in that bucket. So we were thinking about the next format, and we are thinking perhaps we can have some kind of, people can call in. We want to make sure that the community engagement process is robust. So please look for upcoming flyers. We will look to kind of tweak the format. So feedback today is really, really important, and we really do appreciate your participation.
So I think a few questions have come up on the lease process, tenant selection plan, screening. I think that is a good, I think it's a good suggestion to have another meeting in the future to talk about those. And in those, we can include the staff that'll be managing these buildings. And I think we can address a lot of those questions then.
So another question has come up. For folks that are seeking employment, will there be any opportunity for office employment with the new building in terms of administration?
So that's a great question. I think we have not yet planned out what our office staffing will look like once these buildings are online, and whether or not there will be an expansion to the team. But if there is, I think we're certainly committed to making those opportunities available.
Another question and a comment, Alderman Irvin suggested that CAN TV is an option. That actually is a really good option. And we could also, I'll just throw this out there because I know the alderman's listening. Maybe we can even dovetail onto one of his community meetings also. There's a question about storage space. Will there be, bike storage. Will there be bike storage?
Good questions. All three buildings will have bike storage and tenant storage available.
Another question regarding branding. What will the buildings be named?
I don't know that we know yet. I think we're continuing to embrace the Roosevelt Square name, and I think it's possible the buildings will have individual names as well. But we'd like to tie them together and keep them all as part of the Roosevelt Square name. So again, if anyone has ideas, send them our way.
Yeah. So Michael was saying if there's people that have suggestions for the buildings, the names for the buildings, please put them in the feed, and we can take that information down.
Yeah.
I'm just scrolling through to see if I'm trying to capture everything to the extent we can. I think we're doing a pretty good job. Okay, so questions are starting to slow down a bit. Let's see what we've got here. Someone suggested because of utilizing the name Jane Addams. question regarding phase one occupancy. Are all the townhomes occupied currently?
I think it's nearly all. I think there are a few available, but they may be pre-leased at this point.
A question, when will the rehab start on phase one? Well, I think part of that question is all the construction going to happen at one time?
Yeah, all of the construction will start around the same time. I think the rehab will likely be done a bit ahead of the new buildings, but they'll likely start around the end of the year as well.
What was the question?
So there was a question about expanding storage instead
Okay.
in phase one, which is tricky just because the building sizes aren't going to change. I do know there will be new cabinets and new, for instance, in the bathroom, new vanities that will hopefully, be more efficient in terms of their utilization of space. But I don't know that they'll be able to be, additional space allocated for storage.
A question regarding where, and maybe we can pull this up on the map, is where is phase one units? So maybe we can go back to the
Yeah.
presentation and show that. I think phase one is in yellow.
So phase one is in green.
Excuse me, green.
There are 38 phase one buildings that start north of Taylor and travel all the way south to about 13th Street. And they're scattered site. In between these buildings are phase one for sale units that are now independently owned.
Alderman Irvin was asking for a progress report on the for sale component townhomes.
So I just wanted to point out that this phase is not in place of any townhomes that we're looking to do on Grenshaw or in between those buildings. I think the goal here is that this is additive. We're continuing to work with a partner that we have from the original phases on getting these financed and built. We really want to see these townhomes get built there. So we continue to work on it, and again, we'll continue to stay in touch with your office and other folks on it.
Looks like the questions are starting to slow down. Some really good questions today, though. Oh, okay. A question about for sale, and will there be a home ownership phase for CHA families?
So again, the project that we walked through here is all rental, but the concept of home ownership at Roosevelt Square is not going away. That's something that we're going to continue to try to work on and continue to make happen as part of the broader Roosevelt Square development. I don't necessarily have a timeline on when that will start construction, but it is part of the plan.
So Mary is asking, I thought we answered the question, but perhaps not. Will small businesses have an opportunity to rent in the commercial space at Taylor and Racine?
Again, the hope is that we have opportunities for small businesses in that building. And again, we do have space just north of that building on Taylor Street. So any inquiries, we would be happy to work with you on.
So one thing also, as things are slowing down and we're going to be wrapping up soon, we would really appreciate your feedback regarding the format today, what you thought worked, what you thought didn't work, and maybe some suggestions for the next meeting. Also, again, we are trying to get the word out to our families regarding these meetings. So if anybody has comments or suggestions regarding that process as well, we would greatly appreciate them. We want to make sure, again, that this is an all-inclusive process and that everybody is heard. So another question is the Choose to Own program, the CHA component. Will there be townhomes that would be available for CHA families to purchase?
At some point, yes. Again, this project is entirely rental, but I think we're committed to for sale, and I think CHA. I don't want to speak for them, but is committed to that program as well. And just a reminder for any of these follow-up questions, you can reach us at community@relatedmidwest.com.
There's a question regarding HCV participation. I will be relocating to the city next year, and I will be relocating to the city next year. I would like to know when I could apply. So HCV participation, is that a possibility? And if so, when would someone put their application in? So housing choice voucher.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
Unmute. I think applications likely open toward the end of 2022. We're happy to take names down in advance of that and keep a running list. In terms of the HCV process, I think we still have more work to do on rolling out the specifics. So I think I would suggest in the future meetings where we talk about leasing and the lease-up process, we can provide more information on that as well.
There's a comment just that, or a suggestion that, as it relates to getting the word out for the upcoming meetings, making sure that we provide adequate notice. We strive to provide at least 10-day notice for all of our meetings. That's a goal, but yes, so I agree with that. We should definitely try and get the word out at least 2 weeks ahead of time. Okay, we're closing in on, we got about 10 more minutes. Again, comments are starting to slow down, so please get your comments in. So, Michael, is there anything in closing, is there anything that you wanted to add, or?
No, I would just reiterate that we're really excited to be working with everyone here on this project, and we're excited to get shovels in the ground. We're excited to get new units out. We're excited to rehab units. I think it's all really great stuff ahead.
Someone said, thank you, great meeting. Well, there you go. Yay. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for participating today, and we look forward to coming back to the community, to our residents, in a few more weeks, I would think, to give an update and give this presentation again. And Michael, if you could one more time let us know the email address people can email their questions to if they weren't able to email them today or get them out today.
Yeah, it's community@relatedmidwest.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much for participating today, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon. Be safe.